Have you noticed? The very thing you fear most has a way of finding you. You fear rejection, and rejection shows up. You fear losing money, and money slips through your hands. You fear betrayal, and somehow betrayal finds its way in. Is it just bad luck? Or is life exposing something far more dangerous that your fears are quietly shaping your future? In this video, I will show you why fear is the most powerful magnet in your life, why control is a trap disguised as safety, and how the greatest kings, thinkers, and warriors turned fear into the very weapon that set them free. This is not theory. This is survival. This is the difference between living as prey and walking the earth untouchable. So listen carefully, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at fear the same way again. Stay with me until the end. It may be the single most important decision you make today. Fear. It lives in your chest like a quiet drum, beating when no one else can hear it, beating louder when you try to silence it. The more you try to push it away, the closer it gets. The more you try to bury it, the more it grows roots inside you. And here is the cruel trick of life. The very thing you fear most begins to hunt you. Think about it. You fear rejection and somehow you stumble, say the wrong thing, get ignored. You fear losing your job and suddenly every mistake feels magnified until the pink slip appears. You fear betrayal in love, and your suspicion, your paranoia, creates the very cracks that make betrayal possible. Why does this happen? Why does the mind drag us straight into the fire we were running from? Because fear is a magnet. It pulls the world toward it. It shapes how you walk, how you talk, how you decide, how you hesitate. And in that hesitation, in that doubt, in that trembling pause, the worst slips through. Picture a man on the battlefield, sword in hand. One warrior stands tall, clear-eyed, unshaken. The other shakes, his hands sweating, his grip weak. Who will fall first? Not always the weaker fighter, but the one consumed by fear. Because his mind has already surrendered before his body has struck. You've seen this in sports. A football kicker, steady all season, suddenly misses the easiest goal when the pressure is highest. You've seen this in exams. A student knows the answers, but the fear of failure makes the mind go blank. You've seen this in life. People avoid what they dread and end up colliding with it. It is not just coincidence. It is not bad luck. It is the law of fear. What you fear most, you make room for in your life. Look back at history. Caesar feared being overthrown by his friends, so he obsessed over loyalty. And it was his friends, the very men he clung to, who stabbed him to death. King Saul in the Bible feared losing his throne to David. That fear grew into envy. Envy grew into hatred. Hatred consumed him. And in the end, the very thing he feared most happened. David became king and Saul destroyed himself. Fast forward to modern times. Howard Hughes, one of the richest men in history. He feared germs, feared disease. So he locked himself away, avoided the world, cut himself off from life itself. And what was his end? He died alone, trapped by the disease of his own fear. Do you see the pattern? Fear builds a cage and then convinces you it is protection. Fear makes you guard the door while it quietly locks it from the outside. In the workplace, how many people play small because they fear making mistakes? They avoid risk, avoid speaking up, and what happens? They get overlooked, passed by, forgotten. Not because they lack talent, but because fear kept their voice silent. In relationships, how many destroy what could have been love because they feared heartbreak? They cling too tightly. They suffocate their partner. Or they push them away before they can be left. And in doing so, they script their own tragedy. Fear is not just an emotion, it is a director. It whispers lines into your mouth. It choreographs your movements, and before you know it, you are living out the very play you swore you would never act in. Here is the deeper truth. Fear narrows your vision. Like a tunnel, it blinds you to every other path. You start focusing only on the danger. And the more you focus, the more your mind and body bend toward it. Ask yourself, how many nights have you lost sleep imagining what could go wrong? And how often did those exact things or things close enough happen later? Fear is not prophetic. It is generative. It does not predict the future. It builds it. That is why the more you fear something, the more likely it is to happen. Because your attention is fertilizer. Whatever you feed grows, and fear is the most poisonous crop of all. But here is where it gets even more dangerous. Fear disguises itself as safety. It tells you, I am protecting you. But is that true? A man fears poverty. So he hoards, refuses to take risks, clings to every coin. Does that make him rich? No, it makes him tight-fisted, small-minded, and ironically more likely to stay poor. A woman fears being abandoned. So she bends, compromises, tolerates disrespect. Does that make her secure? No, it teaches others that she will accept less and makes abandonment more certain. Fear is a liar. It promises control but delivers chaos. It promises safety but delivers danger. It promises comfort but delivers prison. Think about your own life. What do you fear right now? Losing your job? Being alone? Not being good enough? What if I told you? Those fears are already shaping the road you are walking, and unless you face them, they will be waiting for you at the end. You cannot run from fear. You cannot hide from it. Every time you try, it follows, like a shadow at noon. So the first trap of life is not failure. It is not rejection. It is not poverty. The first trap is fear. Because fear makes everything else more likely. And until you see that, you will keep living as prey in a world that rewards hunters. But if fear is such a trap, why do we keep falling for it? Why do we listen to its whispers, even when history and experience prove it wrong? Because fear hides behind something more seductive. It hides behind the illusion of control. If fear is the cage, then control is the lock. And here's the paradox. We think control will save us. We think if we can just manage every detail, predict every outcome, script every scene, then nothing bad will ever happen. But control is the most seductive illusion in life. It feels powerful. It feels protective, yet more often than not, it is just fear wearing a mask. Think about it. Why do parents smother their children with rules? Not because they love discipline itself, but because they fear the chaos of letting go. Why do leaders micromanage teams, breathing down their employees' necks? Not because it creates better work, but because they fear failure will slip in through any crack. Why do lovers obsess over every text message, every glance, every delay in reply? Not because it deepens love, but because they fear betrayal. Control feels like armor, but in truth, it is chains. The harder you grip, the more life slips through your fingers. Let's look at history. Emperor Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. He unified a nation, but he feared death. So he demanded potions, elixirs, controls over every healer, every alchemist. Do you know what happened? The very potions he believed would protect him poisoned him to death. His fear of dying, his obsession with controlling fate, killed him faster than nature ever could. Or consider Joseph Stalin. He ruled the Soviet Union with an iron fist. Every friend, every advisor, every general was watched. His paranoia created purges, executions, betrayals. And yet, despite his control, his fear of being overthrown made his regime unstable, brittle, destined to collapse. Control did not strengthen him. It hollowed him out from the inside. Now bring it closer to home. Have you ever worked for a boss who couldn't delegate? Every email had to go through them. Every tiny task had to be approved. It slowed everything down. It killed creativity. And in the end, it drove good people away. That boss believed control was power. But the truth? Control was weakness disguised as power. It revealed fear, not strength. Look at your own life. How many times have you tried to control someone you love? Maybe you checked their phone. Maybe you demanded constant reassurance. Did it bring you peace? Or did it drive them further away? Control in love is just fear wearing perfume. It smells sweet at first, but it poisons the room. Here's the brutal truth. Life is not controllable. People are not controllable. The future is not controllable. The more you try to control, the more you suffer. Control is like holding sand in your fist. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it escapes. And yet, here is the dangerous part. Control feels good. It feels like safety. It feels like certainty. That's why people cling to it. That's why nations build walls, companies build policies, individuals build routines. Not out of wisdom, but out of fear. Let's go deeper. Psychology tells us humans crave certainty. Uncertainty makes the brain panic. So what do? We build routines. We predict outcomes. We tell ourselves we are in charge. But the moment life breaks the script, a layoff, a breakup, a diagnosis, we crumble. This is why so many people live anxious lives. Because they are trying to control what cannot be controlled. Traffic. Weather, other people's opinions, the economy. All things beyond their grip. And the tighter they try to hold on, the more powerless they feel. Here is the irony. The people who appear most controlling are often the most terrified. The tyrant is more afraid than the servant. The jealous partner is more insecure than the one they accuse. The micromanager is more doubtful than the intern. Control is not strength. It is fear given authority. But what happens when we let go of control? Does life fall apart? No. Life begins to move again, like a river unblocked. Like a bird released from a cage. Think of the greatest leaders. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king. He did not control every detail of Rome. He focused only on what he could control. His mind, his virtue, his decisions. And because of that, Rome found stability in a time of chaos. Think of great innovators. Steve Jobs did not control every engineer's hand. He gave vision, then let others bring it to life. And in letting go, he built something bigger than himself. The truth is this: freedom begins where the illusion of control ends. Power begins where fear surrenders. Happiness begins when you stop trying to script every scene. Let me ask you directly. What are you trying to control right now? Your partner, your children, your future, your future? What if I told you, the more you try to control them, the more you guarantee you're suffering? Because here's the secret. Control is not power. Clarity is. Choice is. Courage is. And none of these require strangling the world with your grip. In fact, the paradox of life is this: the less you need to control, the more power you actually have. Because then you are no longer driven by fear. You are no longer the puppet. You are the master. So here is the revelation. Fear does not just trap you, it tricks you. It whispers that control will save you. But control is the cage built from your own hands. And if you want to escape the law of fear, you must break this illusion. But if letting go of control is the answer, how do we do it? How do we live in a chaotic world without collapsing into chaos ourselves? That is where transformation begins. That is where we break the spell. We've seen the trap of fear. We've unmasked the illusion of control. Now the question is simple. How do you break free? Because it is not enough to know the problem. Knowing does not liberate you. Understanding does not protect you. You must act. You must break the spell. Here is the first truth. You cannot kill fear. You cannot erase it, silence it, or banish it. Fear is stitched into the fabric of human existence. It kept our ancestors alive. It warned them of predators, storms, and dangers in the dark. But the world has changed. The threats we face today are not lions in the tall grass. They are board meetings, rejections, bank statements, conversations we avoid. And fear reacts to them with the same intensity as if death itself stood at the door. So the goal is not to kill fear. The goal is to master it. To hold it by the throat until it serves you. Think of Alexander the Great. Before every battle, his men trembled. They faced armies twice their size, warriors with more experience. Did Alexander claim he felt nothing? No. He admitted his body shook. But here is the difference. He rode to the front lines anyway. He let fear sharpen his senses, not paralyze his will. And in that, he turned fear into fuel. This is the first way to break the spell. Do not run from fear. Do not deny it. Step toward it. Lean into it, because here is the paradox. The more you face fear, the smaller it becomes. The more you avoid fear, the larger it grows. Think of a man terrified of speaking in public. His first speech, his voice cracks, his hands shake. But he does it. The second time, it is still hard, but easier. The third time, easier still. And one day, the thing that once haunted him becomes second nature. Fear is a shadow. It only has power when you turn away from it. Turn toward it and it dissolves. Here is the second way to break the spell. Shift your focus. Fear thrives on attention. If you stare at it, it grows, so starve it. Look at the Stoics. Epictetus, once a slave, taught this: we suffer not from events, but from our judgment of them. A man insults you. You can focus on the insult, let it sting, replay it endlessly, or you can see it as nothing more than noise from another man's mouth. One focus makes fear grow. The other makes it disappear. This is not theory. It is daily practice. A project at work goes wrong. Do you obsess over losing your job? Or do you focus on learning, on solving, on growing stronger? A relationship ends. Do you obsess over being alone forever? Or do you focus on becoming someone so grounded that you attract better love next time? Focus is the steering wheel of life. Where you look, you drive. The third way to break the spell is brutal but freeing. Accept what you cannot control. Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, faced plague, war, and betrayal. He wrote in his journal, which we now call Meditations, a single truth: control what you can. Accept what you cannot. Respond with virtue. He ruled the most powerful empire on earth, and still he admitted, control is limited. All you can ever master is your own mind. You want peace? Stop wrestling the uncontrollable. Stop trying to bend the universe to your script. Instead, master your response. That is real control. That is power. Here's the fourth way. Redefine fear itself. Do you know why Navy SEALs train in freezing water, in suffocating conditions, in chaos? Not to eliminate fear, but to rewire what fear means. Instead of "this is danger," they train their minds to say "this is growth." Instead of "this will kill me," they tell themselves "this will harden me." Fear becomes signal, not stop sign. Challenge, not curse. Now bring this into your life. You fear failing a business? Redefine it. Failure is not death. Failure is tuition. You fear being rejected in love? Redefine it. Rejection is not humiliation. Rejection is direction. You fear speaking up at work? Redefine it. Speaking up is not risk. Speaking up is reputation. Fear only cripples you if you let it keep its old definition. Change the definition and fear becomes your ally. Here is the final way to break the spell. Practice courage in small steps. Courage is not born in the battlefield. It is born in small decisions daily. Speak up when you want to stay quiet. Say no when you want to please. Ask the question when you want to avoid embarrassment. Every small act of courage builds the muscle. And one day, when the giant fear comes, you are ready. History proves this. Churchill did not wake up one morning ready to lead Britain through World War II. His courage was built through years of setbacks, ridicule, political exile. Each time he stood back up, he grew. So when the world needed him most, he was prepared. Do you see the pattern? Fear is not the enemy. Avoidance is. Control is. Illusion is. The way forward is simple but hard. Face fear. Shift focus. Accept limits. Redefine fear. Practice courage. These are not abstract ideas. They are weapons. They are tools you can pick up and wield today. And when you begin to live like this, something changes. Fear stops hunting you. It starts serving you. The nightmare becomes the ally. The shadow becomes the sword. But breaking the spell is not enough. You must go further. You must learn how to live unafraid, not just in moments of courage, but as a way of life. That is where true freedom begins. So far, we've exposed the trap of fear. We've torn away the mask of control. We've broken the spell with tools and strategies, but this is not the end. It is only the beginning. Because living unafraid is not a single decision. It is a way of life. A posture, a code. Let me ask you something. Do you want to simply survive your fears? Or do you want to rise above them, to walk this world untouchable? There is a difference. The man who survives fear breathes shallow, tiptoes carefully, avoids risk. The man who lives unafraid walks steady, takes bold steps, laughs at risk. Which one do you want to be? Look at history. The great figures we admire were not men and women without fear. They were men and women who lived unafraid. Mahatma Gandhi stood against an empire with nothing but his body and his will. Do you think he felt no fear? Of course he did. But he lived unafraid because his mission was greater than his fear. Martin Luther King Jr. received daily death threats. Every march could have been his last. Did he let that paralyze him? No, he walked forward anyway. And his courage inspired millions to walk with him. Amelia Earhart flew across oceans when aviation itself was in its infancy. Every flight was a gamble with death. But she refused to let fear be her compass. She lived unafraid and, in doing so, expanded what the world thought possible. Living unafraid is not about arrogance. It is not about recklessness. It is about clarity. Clarity that life is short. Clarity that fear wastes time. Clarity that courage creates life worth living. Here is the thing. Fear will whisper every day. It will tell you to play small, to delay, to hesitate, to compromise. Living unafraid means you hear the whisper and still move forward. Think about your own life. How many opportunities have you lost because you hesitated? The job you didn't apply for? The conversation you didn't start? The business you didn't launch? The love you didn't confess? And all because of a voice in your head that said, "Wait, not yet, it's too risky." That voice is not your protector. It is your prison guard. Living unafraid means you stop waiting for certainty. You stop waiting for perfect timing. You stop waiting for fear to disappear. You move now. Because action itself kills fear. Here is a metaphor. Fear is like a fog. From a distance, it looks thick, endless, impenetrable. But the moment you walk into it, you realize it is only mist. Living unafraid means you walk into the fog again and again until you no longer believe in its thickness. Let's talk about the workplace. The employee who fears failure hides. The one who lives unafraid takes on challenges, risks visibility, speaks with authority. Who gets promoted? Who becomes a leader? Not the one who hides, the one who risks. Let's talk about relationships. The partner who fears rejection manipulates, clings, or withdraws. The one who lives unafraid loves fully, speaks truth, sets boundaries. Who creates deeper bonds? Not the one who clings. The one who stands tall. Let's talk about personal growth. The person who fears judgment stays silent. The one who lives unafraid learns new skills, pursues dreams, makes mistakes openly. Who builds a life of color and meaning? Not the one who hides in shadows. The one who lives in the light. Living unafraid is practical. It is not just philosophy. It is daily action. Daily defiance. Daily courage. It means when your hand shakes, you still raise it. It means when your voice trembles, you still speak. It means when your knees buckle, you still walk. And something extraordinary happens when you live this way. People notice. They feel it. Confidence radiates. Courage inspires. You begin to change the people around you simply by refusing to bow to fear. Think of Nelson Mandela. He lived unafraid even after 27 years in prison. And because of that, he didn't just free himself, he helped free a nation. Living unafraid is contagious. Your courage becomes the permission others have been waiting for. So here's the call to action. Do not wait for courage to find you. Build it. Do not wait for fear to vanish. Confront it. Do not wait for the world to hand you certainty. Create your path with uncertain steps. When you wake up tomorrow, ask yourself, what is the one thing I have been avoiding out of fear? And then do it. Not next week. Not someday. Tomorrow. Because living unafraid is not an idea to admire. It is a habit to practice. And if you practice it enough, something miraculous happens. Fear no longer rules you. Fear no longer dictates your choices. You become untouchable. Not because fear is gone, but because fear no longer decides. But there is one final step beyond fear, beyond control. Beyond even courage. There is a state of mind so rare, so powerful, that once you taste it, you can never go back. It is the untouchable mind. And that is where we end this journey. Imagine this. You stand in the middle of a storm. Winds howl, lightning cracks. The ground shakes beneath your feet. Most people would run. Most people would cower. Most people would pray for it to pass, but you stand still. Eyes open. Heart steady. Mind untouchable. That is the highest state a human can reach. Not the absence of fear. Not the illusion of control. Not even courage in the face of risk. But the realization that nothing outside of you has power over you. This is what the Stoics called freedom. This is what warriors called honor. This is what sages called enlightenment. When your mind becomes untouchable, life changes. Criticism comes, it does not sting. Loss arrives, it does not break you. Uncertainty looms, it does not control you. Because here is the secret. You no longer measure yourself by what happens. You measure yourself by how you respond. And when you own that, you become unstoppable. Look at Marcus Aurelius again, an emperor facing betrayal, plagues, and war. Every external storm raged against him. And yet he wrote quietly to himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the untouchable mind. Look at Viktor Frankl, imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, starved, tortured, humiliated. They could strip his clothes. They could take his family. They could beat his body. But they could not touch his mind. And from that fire he wrote, "Everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances." That is the untouchable mind. Look at Nelson Mandela, 27 years behind bars. His youth wasted in prison. Yet when he walked free, he carried no bitterness, no revenge. He said, "I knew that if I did not leave my bitterness and hatred behind, I'd still be in prison." That is the untouchable mind. The world will never stop being chaotic. You will never predict every outcome. You will never silence every fear. But you can reach the place where none of it owns you. And in that place, you are free. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if nothing could break your inner state, if insults slid off like rain, if failure became fuel, if uncertainty became adventure, if loss became teacher? That is not fantasy. It is practice. Daily practice, it is built one choice at a time. When fear whispers, you choose to act anyway. When control tempts, you choose to release. When panic rises, you choose perspective. When pain comes, you choose meaning. Day after day, choice after choice, you forge the untouchable mind, and here is the gift. When your mind is untouchable, the world bends differently. You are no longer prey to circumstance. You are no longer a slave to fear. You are no longer a victim of uncertainty. You are the calm in the storm. You are the fire that cannot be drowned. You are the steel that does not bend. The untouchable mind is not just philosophy. It is survival. It is freedom. It is mastery. And it is available to you, right now, not someday. Not after more success, more money, more approval, right now in this breath. In this choice. So here is the final call. Stop running from fear. Stop clinging to control. Stop waiting for courage to magically arrive. Decide. Decide to live unafraid. Decide to practice freedom of mind. Decide to be untouchable, because the storms will keep coming. The critics will keep speaking. The failures will keep happening. But none of it matters if your mind remains yours. Remember this. A man who masters the world but loses his mind is a slave. A man who loses the world but masters his mind is a king. Be the king. Be the master. Be the untouchable mind. So now you know, fear is not your protector, it is your prison guard. Control is not power, it is the cage you build with your own hands. The real power is clarity. The real freedom is courage, and the highest victory is an untouchable mind. Imagine walking through life where fear no longer dictates your choices, where rejection does not crush you, where failure becomes your ally. And no storm, no critic, no loss can take away your center. That is possible. Not someday, not for someone else, for you, right now. But only if you decide to face what you fear. Decide to release what you cannot control. Decide to live unafraid. Because when your mind becomes untouchable, you are no longer just surviving this world. You are mastering it. Remember, this fear bends the weak, but it crowns the strong. Be strong, be untouchable. Be free.